Today we are diving into Dark Winds Season 3, Episode 6. Welcome to Screens in Focus, the podcast where we talk about TV and movies. I'm Diana. Renee is back. Hi, Renee. How are you?
Hello, I'm very good. How about you?
I'm doing really, really good. And we have so much to cover, so we're going to get right to it. And we're going to start with our question of the day. Because this concentrates on Joe and his dreamlike state, I do want to know, and our question of the day is, do you think dreams can help you process real life pain? Okay, so Renee, you think about
Mhm.
that, and we may get closer to our answer as we go through this. But friends out there, think about that. We're going to answer this later on in the episode. But right now, we're going to get straight to episode 6 because this really does transport Joe back in time, and it covers three narratives, three different threads that we see here. One is the traditional Navajo story of Yeitsu. And then the second one is Joe dealing with this monster. And then the third one is his childhood and what that entailed. So, Renee, what did you think of this episode overall?
I thought it was a fantastic emotional episode. I thought I was such a creative way to kind of focus on the traumatic events that he had experienced, but also exploring what he's currently in the present, everything that he's experiencing in the present. And so I just thought it was so creative how they did it. And it just opened up a whole new chapter to Joe. That I thought that was just, he's so multi-layered already, and then we add this onto it. And so I really, really enjoyed this episode, like more so than the rest, I think.
Yeah.
And with this focus on Joe and everything we learned. And so I thought it was fantastic.
I didn't know what to expect going into this, and it just started, and you were just in it, and I
Mhm.
thought it was haunting, and it was surreal, and it was painful and emotional, and you're right, so revealing, and I feel like this is the path. This is where we're going to see some resolution, hopefully, for Joe
Mhm.
and all of this. So, but you're right. It was very, very creative. And watched it twice. And the second time I watched it, I liked it, better than the first. And I thought the first time was great too. But then I started reading more about it also. And now, while reading certain things, I got really emotional,
Mhm.
realizing everything that the character Joe Leaphorn was going through, but also the actor, which we'll get into as we go through this. So, what were some of the key points that you saw in this episode?
So my biggest thing was the fact that we finally find out that the monster is a human, because Joe and all the viewers, we've all been struggling with this the whole time, like, okay, wait a minute, maybe it is a supernatural being. Oh, wait, no, wait, it touched it. Oh, it did the, and it was just so, it was great how they did it because it kept us guessing the whole time. And so now I feel like that's really going to impact the remainder of the season because I think it's kind of eye opening for Joe to finally realize, okay, this is a human being. I can deal with that. It's a little still difficult because he's trying to kill you and everything else, but at the same time, okay, this is a human being. I can handle and I can deal with that. And of course, then that brings up the question, is this who killed Ernesto? Because we still don't know that. So I just thought that was really interesting to finally pinpoint that. I thought that was one big highlight.
Yeah, and also that we saw what happened in the first episode. We had been waiting to see when that flash forward was going to happen.
Yeah.
So,
So we're
we
caught up to that now.
yes. But it's interesting because it still slashes him. I'm still calling it an it because I still think there's just that little bit that little bit of monster in
Yeah.
this man, how he's slashing him and why he looks the way his face does. I still think it looks like the body of a man dressed up. I want to know who it is, but we'll speculate on that in a little while. But what else did you see?
So the whole ketamine dream that Joe goes through, again, that creativity. And we see focus on Emma and everything going there. And I love that part. It was short, but it was very impactful, I thought, because she wasn't featured very long, but she just calls him out and says, you are putting your job and everything else ahead of me.
Yeah.
And in a marriage that you can't do that, I mean, there are seasons of things like that, but like it can't be continuous because then it does affect the relationship. So I thought that was really impactful. And I thought it was, fascinating to learn about Joe's dad, all Joe's trauma, but he has been carrying this guilt that he thought he killed that priest. Joe thought he did. And then the state that he finds himself in reveals that to him that, that wasn't the case. And so, a lot of these memories he had suppressed and things, and they all came forward. And so that was just really interesting to see that his dad, he did that in the name of Navajo justice, just like, the same is parallel to what Joe's experiencing with Vines. So I thought that was really interesting. That whole childhood trauma was just, again, like I said, we're just these layers to Joe, and watching him relive all those memories and things. That was very emotional.
It was very emotional. As you're saying it, all these thoughts are going through my head because it's a lot to bear as a child going through this, as a young person, and just suppressing all that trauma. It's no wonder Joe is going through all of this as an adult. And we see the decisions that he makes as an adult and not really knowing where that stems from. And I think that we do that as people, right? We make decisions or we react a certain way and we question ourselves, why did we react that way? And thinking about our past. I know I do that a lot.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because it's just something you are impacted by your family life and how you grew up and experiences that you had and events that happened to you. So I really did enjoy the imagery that we saw, the story, the play being set with the two twins and dealing with the monster. I thought that was a really nice concept because I was aware, because I had looked the information up, but people that are not aware, it was kind of nice for them to see this story play out the way it did while interjecting Joe's story as it was going back and forth. So I thought that was pretty cool too.
Yeah, it was very cool.
When they were in that dream, when he was in his dream, and one portion when he was the broken plate, when she was serving the food to everybody, I kept wondering, what does that broken plate mean? And I don't know that it reflected anything specifically, but at the same time, I heard where the director said that everybody at the table was actually Joe. So he was dealing with himself at different aspects, I guess, of time. So I found that really, really interesting.
Yeah.
And so you had talked about Henry, Joe's father, and just that silence that he had. And, it's funny because even as a parent, he probably doesn't realize that Joe doesn't recall things that happen. Right? Because, I mean, he doesn't, if they don't talk about it, how does he know what Joe is feeling and experiencing? And just like Joe doesn't bring it up either. And so he just suppresses all of that. All right. So what themes did you see play out in this episode?
Well, for Joe, just the trauma was, that was just difficult. Yeah, that was really hard to watch because that people go through this and they experience this, and just to watch all of that and all the burden that he had carried for so many years about as kids, I know there's been situations where I've talked to a parent or and I'll talk about a situation like, wait a minute, that's not exactly what happened. But as a kid, whether it's traumatic or not, you have like your kind of jaded view of whatever it is, and if it is a trauma thing, I imagine you want to put these adults you look up to in the best light kind of thing, so like, and see where he would, couldn't believe his dad would do something like that, had to have been him kind of thing, and so I just think sometimes our childhood memories are just because we were children when it happened, that you don't have the, maturity to understand or grasp it. So, for him as an adult now to see all this happening, it's got to be this, relief to him to realize that burden is, I mean, he's got other things going on, but that one isn't on him. He was not in the wrong in any of this. This was a situation he was placed in by an adult he trusted, and I know, it was his cousin that, was abused and things, but he was there, and he, thought that he killed that priest. And so I just, to see him on top of everything else, he's, trying to murder investigation, his wife is, just all these things that he is, he's being investigated by the FBI. He's just got so much. And then, to relive all this, I think a relief on one hand, but then also, he's still realizing that journey, his journey is parallel to what his dad, what he is going through with Vines right now.
Again, packed with so much in what you just said. So, okay, the first thing is the themes that I saw was trauma and memory suppression. Of course, we've already touched upon it, but so he's holding all this in, not really thinking about it or bringing it up in his life. So you feel like he thought he had actually killed the priest? Because I was thinking that in the dream, he thinks he killed the priest. I don't know if he really thought he killed the priest in real life, but I guess maybe he could have. I mean, how do we know? Because we're not in Joe's mind, right? But I was thinking it as far as he was thinking he killed the priest because he actually killed BJ Vine. So he was sort of taking that, how when you have a dream, you kind of change who it is. Yeah. So I was kind of feeling as if he killed BJ Vines, and then he's like, oh, so I killed the priest in this dream that I'm having. But then as things intermingle with real life, he's thinking, oh, this happened to my cousin. And then he's remembering what happened to his cousin, because that's the part where I think he just like, I can't, my young brain can't take this. What happened to my cousin? Because I saw what that priest did, and that is so wrong. I do want to bring this up because I was so impacted by reading this. I guess this was a closed set during this filming when they filmed the part with his cousin Will and the priest. It was a closed set because I knew it was a hard scene to portray on camera. And so they had intimacy coordinators come with the young actor and the priest so that, he could understand what was happening. I don't know the particulars. I know that they just took care in that. But also when Joe was, or actually when Zahn was portraying this, he was, I guess, conveying a lot of anger in his portrayal. And the director came to him, I think her name is Erica. When she came to him, Erica Tremblay, she got close to him because he said, I can't do this without you. And so he held her arm through the cell, and he did his part. Oh my gosh, to hear that Zahn was feeling these emotions and that she was responding to that and taking care of him on set as they went through this was just unbelievable. Putting yourself in such a vulnerable state to portray this, because I think with Zahn, whatever his experience may be, he is a Native person, and there are a lot of experiences that you have that you're bringing to this episode that are just deep within you. And so it was just very moving for me when I read that, and I read that scene, because when I saw it on screen, I was like gripped. I thought, oh my gosh, he can't reach his cousin. He can't help his cousin because he's a little kid. And how do you do that? And then later on, when he talks to his father in the dream, it kind of exposes that whole generational trauma, because his dad is basically, okay, this is what I've done, and I don't want you to do this. I don't want you to be a cop. I want you to leave this place. But But Joe doesn't leave the place. He becomes a cop. And now we understand where he is coming from in this role that he is doing, and how that plays a part in his life. And so, wow, there's just so many themes, so many parts in play here. So I just thought that was it's so good. It's so good. I'll let you talk now. I talked a lot, Renee.
Zahn actually had some type of experience with his cousin in real life. He didn't say that it was the same kind of thing, but something like he really experienced with a cousin was this like really touched a nerve with those things. And so that was one of the other reasons it was so emotional for him.
Yeah.
So he didn't go into specifics in the interview I read, but there was something that kind of triggered some memories and things for him in real life. So it definitely compounded all the emotion that he was feeling.
Exactly.
So, yeah, that's tough. That's so tough. Oh, goodness.
Well, that just shows you the talent, right? The talent that Zahn is, that he's willing to bring that up in him. And because sometimes that's too scary. People cannot do it. And just like he is portraying Joe Leaphorn, Joe can't face this. He can't face what has happened. And a lot of people can't. And so it's brave for the character, and it's brave for the actor.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
One of the other, I guess, themes that I really enjoyed was all the cultural aspects of us seeing this. We heard about these hero twins, but again, like you said, you had stated earlier, they didn't really go into it much. And unless you researched it, you really didn't know. And so I just loved seeing that the whole thing as a play. I just it's so stinking creative. I just can't believe this episode, because to put that, this play is playing out here while Joe's life is, kind of mirroring what's going on there. But I really, really enjoyed seeing all of that. And it was just a great way to highlight, like an important part of the Navajo culture and that story. So I really enjoyed that a lot.
I did too. I did love that. Of course, I love anything that we learn culturally as we're watching this. So I thought that was a great way to show us that. Now, was one of the kids George's younger brother? Or I don't know, his face looked familiar. Like, I'm like, have we seen this kid before? Is he one of the kids that we've seen in something? Or is
I thought the same thing, but I didn't ever put it together. I didn't do any research to see if that was someone, but I thought the same thing, because at one point I got kind of like, wait a minute, who is this kid?
Yeah.
So I didn't research that to figure that out. But I thought something was familiar.
Yeah, I did too. And what about Washington and Joe? Because it's interesting, because they're dancing. And at first I'm like, why are they dancing? But they're dancing around each other. Are you going to get me? You're not going to get me. Are you going to put the clues together? How are you doing this investigation? Oh, she's following the book. And, but the book doesn't always work for Native people, because they get the raw end of the deal and they never get justice. It was so interesting. What did you think of all of that?
I just loved that. I loved, just seeing her all dressed up like that was fun, just to kind of, it's transformation from what we've seen her in her business suits and all this kind of stuff. So that was fun. But yeah, I sat there and watched that. I'm like, okay, why are we dancing? Oh, we're dancing around everything here. It's literal. So yeah, I thought it was just really, really good. And, I think this, shows us that, she knows a lot more than she's sharing, which we've suspected just by things she said. But this is very revealing for him to see, or kind of get more insight into what she knows without really saying it, and that stuff. How does he get out of this? If, when this segment ends, is he going to be arrested, or what's going to happen? So it's very exciting, and it gives me some anxiety for him.
Yeah, for sure. Well, as you said that, I couldn't help but jump to the next episode previews, where Emma says something like, what do you know and what can you prove?
Yes. I love that, because we've seen this where we know she's upset with him, but she, that's still her husband. And she's just like, being the wife of a cop. She's like, so what can you prove?
So maybe it'll come down to that. I don't know. Oh my gosh. We only have 2
I
more
know.
episodes. I'm not sure how we're going to get through this, or how we're going to get through this until the next season. Because, like I said, I think there's going to be I think they're going to, clear this investigation up. But as far as some relationships, I don't know where they're, what's going to happen with
Yeah.
those. But I'm assuming that she's going to close up her investigation at the end of this. But who knows? Maybe not. Maybe not.
Mhm.
We'll have to wait and see. And like you already mentioned, Emma not being prioritized. And that's what that whole fence building and her produce and her putting the key in her mouth
Yeah.
and and swallowing it or whatever it is. Do you have other thoughts, theories, takeaways? What did you think about George? You have any thoughts on George or?
I just wonder what forced, like, this thing obviously has been pursuing him as well, because he's trying to wake him up. Wake up, he's coming, he's coming. That's why, I was thinking, which I'm sure everyone's thinking, who killed Ernesto. So that could, if maybe he witnessed that or so, I don't know.
Yeah.
But again, then, I'm still like, okay, what does this tie back to the dig? We need that last piece, because there's something tying this all together. Yeah. So I thought it was really interesting, that he was, he was very brave. I mean, because he's a young kid. Even when, Joe said something about the gun, he's like, well, the shotgun hunting, it's kind of the same concept. And so, he did his best to try to protect Joe while he's obviously suffering on the ground there and everything with an arrow in his neck and all of that. But yeah, so I thought it was really interesting to see him, and because we've been wondering where he's at, and he's been hiding out. And what's he hiding from? Is it just this guy, or is there other things going on?
So it makes me wonder if let's call him the monster still because we don't really know who it is. One, is he really wearing that or is that just Joe's interpretation of
Mhm.
this guy, right? Because why would he be wearing that? So it makes me feel like the guy probably doesn't really look like that. It's just
Mhm.
Joe's imagination because that's what Joe is going through. And then we talked about that dart that is in him and what's in the dart, who would have that dart. I still think it is that doctor researcher
Mhm.
person because they said he's 6'2". I think that guy was fairly tall.
Yeah.
And why would they introduce them at the beginning and then we
Mhm.
don't see anything? I mean, we're at the
Yeah.
last 2 episodes here. We haven't seen him at all.
Mhm. Well, in an interview, Zahn he confirmed that the dart was ketamine because that's what they use on animals to sedate
Mm.
them and things. And so,
Oh, okay.
yeah, so because that's why I said ketamine dream, because that's what he said in
I
the interview.
wondered why you said that.
Yeah, I meant to explain that. Oops. Hopefully, you're still
I
listening
just
now.
I just thought that was the drug of choice at currently, that's or
Yeah, no,
whenever,
that's what. Yeah,
70s.
actually, he confirmed that that's what they use them tranquilizers for animals and things. So that was what was on. Yeah, because that's what he called it, was his ketamine dream, and then he went on to explain that that's what they use. But I guess they use ketamine for a lot of. I think for people with anxiety and depression too, they can use ketamine for that also. But he actually said it was a animal tranquilizer on the dart or something like that.
So who would have access to
Yeah.
that?
That's what I was thinking. I'm like, we haven't met any like veterinarians, or we haven't met, so I don't, again, but I still go back, the dig and that guy, because like you said, we've got no clues as to anything with them, but what would they need that kind of stuff for in a dig?
I know I'm racking my brain trying to think of anybody that is in this that would have that information. The only other people that we have seen is Shorty, but
Hmm.
why would Shorty be
Hmm.
chasing his kid? I mean, that just doesn't seem right to me. And then Gordo, it's funny. For a second, I thought Gordo was the dad. Like when he saw him
Oh,
covering the grave and you could see someone in a uniform, I thought, "Oh my gosh, is
oh,
it Gordo?" And I said, "That's why Gordo is protective in a way of Joe. At least that's the way I felt,
yeah.
right? He's protective of Joe because he did the same thing." And then I'm like, "No, it's Henry. It's his dad," which just made much more sense after I
Mhm.
saw that. But I'm trying to think of other people and characters
Mhm.
that we've seen. And the only reason I bring up that researcher doctor is because we don't really know him and he's new, and that would just make sense. And they're digging and they probably found something or whatever it might be. So I don't know. We're closing in though. We're closing in. Did you have any other thoughts or?
No, just that, overall, I just thought that this episode just really gets into Joe's mind. And I think, the next episode's going to be like I don't know, kind of a wake up call for him. Like he's been in this state, all this has happened, he's gotten hurt, he realizes the guy, it's likely a human, which I feel like in my mind anyway, I could deal better with a human than a supernatural entity.
Yeah.
Okay, I can handle a human, but this other thing, I don't know what to do with. So, maybe he'll get like I don't know, just kind of some clarity to all this and be able to kind of focus on what he needs to get to the bottom of the, who murdered Ernesto and who this person thing is, So I think it was just opening, like you said, kind of opening up to, the end here to figure some things out.
I definitely think that, Joe, even though this can be very painful, it's what he needed to remember, recall, experience so that he could move on and not be in a guilt blaming stage. It's more like acceptance of things and being able to move forward. So I do think that this was the key for him to move forward, even though it is very, very painful. A couple of things I wanted to bring up from the director. She had said about this episode, because we both found it so creative and such a great way to tell the story. And they did give a lot of care to this because it did deal with a lot of what a native's experience in what their experience has been. Anyway, she said, I watched a lot of anime such as Perfect Blue. David Lynch was a huge inspiration in this episode, and thinking of how to have creative transitions from one scene to the next. She watched Eternal Sunshine of Spotless Mind and Everything Everywhere All at Once on repeat and just kind of try to put things together and craft it together. So I thought that was kind of cool. She also said that to me is the lesson of the episode is that the things that have happened to Native Americans and historically, the things that we've dealt with, the monsters were genocide. The monsters are lack of justice. The monsters are individuals, human beings who are exacting this thing upon other human beings.
Mm-hmm.
I think that hopefully a lesson that non-Native folks can take away from this episode. So I think that's why it was very important that this is a human being doing this to another human being. So just information on the last thing I wanted to say about this episode before we get to our question of the day is at the very end, we do hear Bob Dylan's Knocking on Heaven's Door, which I thought was pretty cool. Pretty cool song to have play over the ending part of this. All right. So our question of the day, Renee, are you ready for it? Do you think dreams can help us process real life pain?
Yes, I do. I feel a lot of times, like, I know, like, things, you'll revisit them in a nightmare or, that kind of thing, or just revisit it. And I feel like it's more of a safe space that you can think of different ways to deal with the situation or how it could be handled or things like that. I know personally, I have dreams sometimes that I wake up from, I'm like, that was so real, not necessarily a traumatic thing, but like, it's like, so, it just seems so real. Like this could have been sometimes my dreams are just really weird. And I'm like, okay, that was probably not real or something that could happen. But then you have ones where you're like, wait a minute, that was like a situation I could have been, or I wasn't, or something. So I feel like, the trauma could come back as a nightmare, but at the same time, you can process that as maybe different outcome, I guess, or something like that helps you kind of heal from things or whatever. So I think it can be done.
I agree with what you just said because I think dreams help us in a way. If there is something bothering us or whatever it might be, the dreams are weird and bizarre, but at the same time, you take a piece of what is in that dream and you start to try and analyze it. And analyzing this little piece it makes sense to you. You understand, like, oh, this is really bothering me. And you see it sort of outside of yourself. And I think it's easier to recognize or figure out a way to deal with it because of it. So yes, I do agree. I do think that dreams can help us process real life pain because it's all of us, right? And we're trying to help ourselves. So I think that that is what it does. So friends out there, what do you think? Do you think dreams can help us process real life pain? Please let us know what you think in the comments. And if you just want to comment on the episode, that's fine too. We want to hear from you. So comment wherever you're watching. You can also get to all of our social media at screensandfocus.com, which is in the show notes. And let us know what you think because we want to know. All right. So we are going to be back for episode 7. I can't believe we have 2 more, but make sure you tune in because they're going to be exciting, I know. All right, that's our wrap up of Dark Winds. Let's head over to our TV and movie recommendations. So, Renee, have you been able to watch anything? And if so, what is it?
So as far as shows, I watched Pulse, which is another like emergency room, kind of like the Pitt. It was ranked pretty high on Netflix, like TV shows for the week and that kind of thing. So I thought, well, I'll check it out. But it's not the Pitt. So I mean, the Pitt was literally like, oh, I gotta wait next week for the episodes. I could not wait. It's not bad. It's just not as maybe dramatic and as it's not as good for sure. Not and it's not like it's a bad series. I watched the whole thing through. I was like, I kind of was starting out slow, kind of like, okay, am I gonna keep with this? I'm like, yeah, I just gotta finish it. So I finished it, and then I was like, okay, well, they set everything up very nicely to go into another season if Netflix would renew it. And I'm pretty curious about several of the characters that I like. Like, well, okay, what's gonna happen next to them? So it's really one of those ones I'm indifferent to, and it's hard.
Yeah.
If you watch it, don't expect the Pit. Don't expect it to be that good. It's not terrible at all. I feel like I'm just kind of like on the fence here. I don't know which side to go with this one. So, it's on Netflix. Then I watched The Lady's Companion. Okay, so I read a thing and it said this is like Bridgerton meets Fleabag. And I'm like, that sounds brilliant. I only watched the first episode and I'll probably watch another one just to make sure, like the first episode, they just didn't need to, kind of whatever. It's just silly. I feel like it's just really silly. And I love period dramas. I love Bridgerton. I haven't watched all of Fleabag, but what I watched of it was funny and it was, all the edgy and stuff like that. But I don't compare it to either one of those because, and I can't tell you what period. It's not Regent or Bridgerton's Regency. I don't know what period it's in. And the costumes are beautiful and the colors are beautiful. It's filmed really nice. But like I said, it just seems silly to me. So I'll watch the next episode and then I'll report back.
Okay.
And then we watched a movie. I think it's like a couple years old, but it's called Please Don't Destroy the Treasure of Foggy Mountain. And I don't even know why this was in our queue if my husband found it or whatever. And so the only person I knew in it was Conan O'Brien. And we watched it. It's so he plays like this dad who owns kind of like a Bass Pro Shop kind of thing. And I can't remember what it's called, Trout something, but it is goofy and it's zany and it's funny. And it's like this coming of age story of these kids and it's just all over the place, but it was funny. I liked it. It was just one of those like relaxing and just enjoy a goofy movie kind of thing, and then I found out that some of the people who star in it are from the comedy troupe called Please Don't Destroy. So that's where it's like, please don't destroy. And then it's the Treasure of Foggy Mountain. So I forget if it's New York or wherever, but it's this comedy troupe, which I had never heard of, but that's who some of the actors are. So if you're familiar with that, then, you would probably like this, but anyway, yeah. So it was just a fun, goofy movie. And I enjoyed it. it wasn't like rolling the floor laughing, but I was laughing,
Yeah. It's always good to watch a movie that is just, I don't know, it's just entertaining for the moment or whatever it is. So
not too serious, didn't take itself seriously. There's just all kinds of stuff going on. And so I enjoyed it.
So I haven't watched The Pulse. I don't think I'm going to tune into The Pulse, but I did want to say that I heard the same feedback that you gave. It's not the Pit. So if you're going in thinking it's the Pit, it's not. But the fact that you watched the whole season, I mean, that's saying
Yeah.
something, right? So it was at least watchable for you.
Yeah.
How many episodes were there?
I think, was it 8 or 10? Maybe 10. I think it might have been 10.
Wow, that's a lot
Yeah.
of episodes to
Yeah.
watch for something
Yeah.
that you weren't
But,
sure about.
and to give it its due, I mean, I just think if the Pit wasn't there, I think it would just be doing so much better.
Well, as you can tell, Renee and I like the Pit. So if if this is the first time you're tuning in, go watch the Pit. And I don't know if we even talked about the finale or not, but man, oh man,
Woo.
it was such a good season. And I wasn't even the first 3 or 4 episodes. I thought, okay, this is good, whatever. But man, it ramped up as each episode went on.
Mhm.
And no, Wiley is so good in it.
I know. He's just, I'm really impressed with him because I don't think I've ever seen him in much of anything since ER, I mean, that's what I remember him from. And it wasn't like he made this huge impact on me. I just know, oh, that's a guy from ER, but he was just so good. And he just, everything he did was just, I don't know, just so much goodness.
Well, and I don't think I said this here last week because I did talk to somebody about this, but like he's the new internet crush. Did I tell you that last week or not? Okay, so it was something else. Like he's all over the place. People are like, Dr. Robbie, I'm sick.
That's so funny.
And then I think he was on Jennifer Hudson or something like that. And she was telling him, she's all, that, you're it on the internet. And he was like, his cheeks were beet red. He was so embarrassed, like so embarrassed. And she's all, you're blushing. And he's all, I can't. And then she's all, what do your kids think? Do they think you're cool? He's all, no, they're my kids. They don't think I'm cool at all. So which made him all the more endearing, right?
Yeah.
Actually, he's been on a couple of things. He was on I can't think of the show right now. It was like one of those science fiction-y shows that my husband watches. He likes them a lot in that. And he was in it for quite a few seasons. And then wasn't he like in The Librarian or something like that? Some other show called The Librarian. So he's done quite a few series. It's just
I just hadn't seen him.
Yeah. But he does really great work. And the reason I'm bringing him up is because people are saying, oh, are you going to be nominated for an Emmy? Because Emmys are coming up. And of course, we want Zahn to be on that Emmy list. And, Adam Scott and Severance, and then Pedro Pascal, because I'm going to tell you, I watched The Last of Us, which is out on Max. It's the first episode of season 2. Just all these actors. It's just incredible. So that was the only reason I was bringing up the Pit and both of us really enjoying that. I did want to also say that I watched the first episode of Black Mirror season 7, episode 1. It's called Common People, and it's with Rashida Jones and Chris O'Dowd. And it starts off really as a really good, I'm sure, start to the season. They're a couple and she has brain cancer. Something happens with her brain and they have to do some experimental thing for her. But that comes with how do you want to say it? Like a subscription to keeping your brain on a subscription, depending on what tier you're going to pay. Can you imagine? I'm not going to give anything else away, but I felt like it was a Verizon commercial, right? It's like they bring it out. They're like, you're connected in all of these states, but if you want more connection, pay more money. It's that type of thing. It's crazy.
Oh my gosh.
Really good first episode to the season. For movies, I saw G20, which is on Prime. This is with Viola Davis. She's so cool. And she kicks ass in this movie. She is the president and she has to protect her husband and her 2 kids. And all of them are smart in their own right. All, the daughter and everybody, but it's a pretty good movie. I enjoyed it. It's on Prime. And then I went to the theaters and I went and saw Warfare. This is written and produced by Ray Mendoza and Alex Garfield. And Alex Garfield, you may know, he did Civil War and other movies, but Ray it's actually based on his experiences as a Navy SEAL in Iraq.
Mm.
And it is incredible film. I always say I don't like war films. I don't want to watch war films, but I always watch war films because I think it's important, so important to see what people, these soldiers, families, and everybody involved with war go through. It really is really important. It's phenomenal. It has Will Poulter, Joseph Quinn, just so many. I can't even list them all. There's a bunch of actors. So good. But the one that I was really impressed with is Ábidoo'niidę. He's in Reservation Dogs. And he plays Mendoza. They're all good. They're all good. But for some reason, I'm like, who is this young actor? He's really good. It's so good. It's a really good war film, and everyone should tune in. I highly recommend it. All right, Renee, thank you for your recommendations. And thank you for your insights, as always, in Dark Winds.
Of course. It's my pleasure. I love it.
I love it too. And I love having you here. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, friends out there, thank you for tuning in. We are so happy that you joined us. We hope that we said something today that provided some insight, that resonated with you, that gave you a chuckle. Please subscribe to Screens in Focus at screensinfocus.com. And remember to keep watching, keep exploring, and keep those screens in focus. And we will see you next time. Bye.
Bye.